Hey friends, welcome back to the first official DPG video. Today we will be discussing the education system, how it works, whether it's even worth pursuing a degree and other alternative options outside of a degree. Let me start off by saying I personally study international business. I'm currently going into my second year. If you haven't watched my first video, now you know. Essentially, I have benefited from university in a large amount of ways. I would personally say that it was one of the best decisions I have made in my life. I took advantage fully in terms of the resources I was given, the type of information that was provided to me. I fully took everything on board and I utilized it in terms of taking advantage of the whole package that was given to me. Me personally, I wasn't going to attend university. It wasn't one of the goals that I had within my time of doing my A-levels. Essentially, what I was going to do is instantly start getting into work. I was looking for banking positions, customer service assistants in banks. But I soon realized that my financially orientated mindset wasn't going to get me far, as in the world, or in the real world, essentially, as people like to call it. You do need to have a skill set and some type of value to bring into a company to get paid more. Like I said, I was planning to work out for, a whole 1 or 2 years, just as much money coming in as possible in order to put into investments, into real estate, whether to put it into stocks. But essentially, yeah, I didn't go with that route because I was highly motivated by the individuals around me. I had people finishing uni, going into 30, 40k a year paying jobs, which was quite motivational to me at the age of 17, 18. So essentially I scrapped the whole thing with working for a bank, saving up as much money as possible for investments and whatnot. Instead, I went straight for the foundation year, which was offered to me in a central London University. I just thought that central London holds a lot more value than places outside of London. Not only is it the center, basically the monetary manufacturer of the UK, but essentially that is the majority of where jobs are, where opportunities are held, and it's just a fast-moving environment. Essentially, it's something that I'm quite comfortable with. Just kind of getting things done, being quite productive. And initially, I'm saying this now, but at the start, it wasn't like this. It was all very new. I was very out of my comfort zone. I kind of left everyone that I knew, as I wanted. I wouldn't say a fresh start, but just a start with a fresh mind, essentially, if that makes sense. Obviously, I started university, so my foundation year was incredibly, I'm not going to say difficult. My foundation year was just very different. It was almost like retaking my A-levels. But within that period of time, the reason why I say it was not a waste of time, like a majority of people would say a foundation year is because I met a bunch of individuals. I've made new connections. I've expanded my network. They say your network is your net worth. So I've expanded my network in terms of the people I met, the type of conversations I held, the new information I've gathered, the new things I've learned. All of that is priceless. You can't put a yearly fee on that. You can't. It's all priceless. Anything that you learn in those respects. Think about it like this: if you weren't there at that time, it wouldn't have happened, if that makes sense. It is one of the best options that I made so far in my lifetime, and I say this because I've utilized university for everything that I could in terms of the networking events that I've been going to, the new connections I've made, the new information I've gathered, the new ventures I've kind of opened or started. It's taught me a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to learn in a 9-to-5. Essentially, as majority of 9-to-5s have a systematic way of doing things, which if you are working, you would already know that no matter whether it's retail or the entertainment industry, whatever industry you're working in, everything is kind of already in place for you. You can't really play around with certain policies and procedures. You can't really test, and unfortunately, but a lot of individuals who have been at companies for a set period of time just don't want to get out of their old ways, if that makes sense. So they are kind of stuck to one way of doing things. But let's get into the advantages of going to university. So the first advantage of university is the network that you can build. You've got people coming from all over the world to university, depending on which one you go, of course, but typically you've got people coming from all over the world to your university. Why wouldn't you want to utilize that person in terms of you're in the UK and they're, let's say in China, there is a lot of Chinese students in my university, so why wouldn't you want to utilize that friendship, you know what I mean? Let's say you are a business-minded student such as myself, you've got an individual from China, an individual in America, you can potentially build a network of, I don't know, import and exporting products. It varies on the individual, but me personally, I'm more of a services type of person. That's the number one thing. Networking, the people you meet is key at university, and that's one of the biggest advantages that I personally have noticed throughout my 2 years at university. The next thing is you actually come out with a degree and some additional knowledge other than what you already know, if that makes sense. So you do come out with a degree, you do add more value to your CV, let's say to your personal development. Number 3, you will grow as an individual. Being surrounded by such grown individuals, if that's who you are surrounding yourself by, that of course you will develop slowly in terms of you're going to become more independent, you're going to have your own thinking process, you're going to have your own opinions, your own judgments. It's not going to be based off the group that you're hanging around with, which is what people tend to do nowadays within the UK or within the environment that I live in anyways. Also, the resources that university provides you with, such as the tutors that you get, you got doctors, professors, and if you're able to communicate with them well enough, I'm sure they'll be able to sit down with you and guide you through whatever problems you kind of face in life, no matter what they are. Universities tend to have libraries with hundreds of thousands of books, which is the key into self-development, I believe, is by reading and just being optimistic and not big-headed, with respects, not big-headed, which are key things in growing and becoming a successful individual, which is not all to do with financial literacy. However, there are a few disadvantages of going to university. The number one thing I would say is cost. Now, I'm going to sit down and actually break down the costs of going to university, because this is the number one thing that people should be considering before even making that step to enroll. I'll go through a few calculations. Essentially, let's do the first one. So I'm going to take my example, which is the most relevant in this case. So my course costs £9,250 for a 4-year period. Let's say that is how long we're going to be studying for, because courses vary from 3 to 4 years, and then if you want to go ahead and do masters, then that's another additional fee. But essentially 37,000 is what I'm going to be paying just for doing the degree. You also get something called a maintenance loan. This varies from individual to individual. If you have a high household income, then you will be getting less maintenance loan. If you have a low one, then you get a higher one, and vice versa. So typically the most you can get is 11,000 something. I'm not too sure on the exact figures. Me personally, I get 7,500. So let's just do 7,500 times by 4 years, and that's it there for you. 67,000 is how much I will be paying at the end of my degree. So if you think about the other career route which I was planning on, that could potentially be a down payment on a property for £670,000, if that makes sense, because I believe it's 10% that you need to put a down payment, or some places are 5, some places are 10. But £67,000 is an incredible amount for something such as a degree, which is kind of deteriorating in terms of its value. Like I said, you do have to hold a lot more value than just a degree nowadays. You do need to have a higher skill set. I heard recently that a coding language such as Python and all of these, I'm not too in depth with them, but all of these other coding languages are also come useful in terms of building value in yourself. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the cost involved in going to university in London, in the UK anyways. There was recently a post on LinkedIn about an individual who came across his debt on his student finance page, and he did throw a post about it. I'll just read it out to you guys very quickly. Cool, let's just go through it. So, he got a letter asking me to log into my student account loan. On this, I was welcomed with this £62,632.89 of debt. If you take a look at what he's provided you with, the amazing breakdown of what he's borrowed, £9,000 times 4 years equals to X amount. So he's, in that period of time, the 4 years of £9,000 plus the 3250 of 4 years has accumulated to £49,000 over his time of his degree. Also, his debt, let's just have a read. Since graduating, despite working as an aerospace engineer and then a software developer, my debt has increased by over £13,000. So I'm not too sure in terms of when he graduated, but that is an insane amount of money, from 49,000 to £62,000. If you just consider that one factor, that might help you make your decision whether you do want to go university or not. He also commented down underneath, to just keep my balance stable, I would need to be earning £56,000. Until then, I'm constantly going further into debt. Unfortunately, those are the costs involved in doing a degree. So if you have no other plan in how to avoid paying that, which I personally don't, I'm looking to pay it all back, but I do have a strategy to build more value to myself so I can pay it off quicker, if that makes sense. Another downside is that you could be faced with the wrong environment once you've actually gone ahead and entered university. You could be surrounding yourself with the wrong people, the wrong crowd, which can be dangerous at times if you're not cautious with what you want to do with your life, if that makes sense. So if you are kind of going to university because you're forced or you've been forced, then I would highly recommend trying to fight against that force, as difficult as it may be. I've seen a lot of people go to university and get into addictions, get extremely high amounts of depression, anxiety, and they're just not able to function in the real world with normal people, if that makes sense. Well, not saying that they're not normal, but mental problems have risen over the last few years and are just disregarded in that respect. Another disadvantage of university is living on campus and living away from parents or your family, which is quite difficult in times. A lot of individuals don't prepare to live by themselves and be independent and cook and clean for themselves. So it is a big step forward. It's not just a simple, I'm going to go live at university, do my degree and finish. You do need to consider all of these factors. You will be paying your own bills, you will be cooking for yourself, cleaning, and a lot of people don't have the skills because they've been so dependent on, mum, dad or parent, carer, whichever one it is, and they're just not prepared for the next step in life, which is essentially becoming independent, which is definitely something I would advise to you if you definitely know you're going to university and you are going to be living on campus. Start being more independent and start taking responsibility for yourself, as you don't want to be blaming the next individual because of something that you've done. So that is something I would highly recommend. One thing I wouldn't recommend is doing an apprenticeship. I personally think it's just a waste of time and a way to take advantage of individuals. I've seen loads of ridiculous apprenticeships, such as I've seen a Pizza Hut delivery driver apprenticeship, if I'm not mistaken. I'm very positive I did see one of those, and I just don't see the point in them. You're just, trying to get cheap labor, pretending that you're going to be, or not pretending, but you're essentially you're just paying someone to teach them how to work. You can apply for a job and they would train you anyways, so why would you go ahead and do an apprenticeship for less money, if that makes sense? But obviously that does depend from industry to industry. Such things such as IT, engineering, or that, I definitely would say that does bring a lot more value to you than just taking advantage of you, if that makes sense. But you have to utilize every opportunity to the max, and that would be my top tip from myself. I highly recommend looking into career paths, things that you want to do, any hobbies that you have. Just go ahead and go into them straight away, if that makes sense. You might as well earn while you do what you like doing. In the future, your hobby might change, your taste might change, you might want to try something different. You never know how it goes, to be honest. You always have to be optimistic and curious. I would say. So there are trades out there such as plumbing, electrician, being a mechanic, being a barber, being a personal trainer. All of these jobs, even though they're not idolized as jobs you would essentially be working towards, I personally would recommend and highly advise you to look into them. These jobs, I believe they're called specialized jobs. So these jobs, you can't find these skills on every and any individual. I would highly recommend looking into one of those trades. It doesn't have to be the ones that I mentioned, but a specialized trade such as a mechanic, being a construction worker, or one of those trades anyways, plumber, electrician, whatnot. Saying that doesn't mean that if you do get into those jobs, you will automatically be a millionaire. It gives you a head start in terms of your financial positioning. So if you do come from a poorer background or a more disadvantaged background where both your parents are working, but you kind of still in the same position and you don't feel like much progress is being made, then that trade is definitely one that you should look into. Saying that, you should also keep yourself educated and up to date with current times. I know it's quite difficult, especially if you're like in construction or plumbing. It is a job where you will be working 24/7. It is a lot of labor. It can get overwhelming, but essentially you kind of need to stick to your goals and make sure that they come first before anything. Also, once you've gained some experience in one trade, you may find that you want to try another trade, which can be possible at a young age. The one thing you need to realize that you've got enough time to make these risks until, I don't know, we'll say 30, 35. You know, you start hitting that age, then you need to really knuckle down with what you want in life and how you're going to get it. Which, if you haven't made that plan or if you haven't considered it yet, it's still understandable. But more or less, shortly you will need to make those decisions. Like I said, and it all comes with the growth of independence, personal development, which is difficult, but it's doable. A piece of advice that I have for you is, if you are between the ages of 16 to 18 and you haven't gone to university yet, I would highly recommend during your 6-week period to just crack on with work. Ask your parents to open you a child savings account, and from there, whatever money you save up, try to transfer it into that account, but make sure you read the terms and conditions of whatever product you're buying from the bank. Read the interest rates. I know with everything that's happened recently, interest rates have fallen by a large amount, unfortunately, but a child savings account has one of the highest percentages of APR that I've ever seen, if I'm going to be totally honest, on a product. So I highly recommend doing one of those, just putting all your money in there and possibly just saving up some money for when you do go to university and you do have something to live on. You know, the extra additional things that you want to do to socialize, you know what I mean, whether you want to take a little holiday break, which is extremely needed and is underestimated in terms of the power that it has on yourself and your mental well-being. So that is something I would recommend doing, just opening a child savings account and just slamming as much money as you can in there and letting the interest do its thing. If you do save enough money within a period of time, you know, you could be getting up to £30-40 a month. If you do get lucky, if you do manage to save enough money within that period of time. But essentially, that is today's video. I just thought I'd give you a little insight on other things that you're able to do outside of a degree, other options broadly, in terms of the type of trades, the apprenticeships and whatnot. A slight advice video, I would call this, for individuals. If you do want me to go into depth for each of those parts, let me know. I'll be more than happy to do it. But for the time being, if you do have any questions, drop them in the comment. I'll be more than happy to answer them and give you some advice and some personal experiences that I've had and how I went about tackling them and whatnot. Thank you for listening. I'd appreciate a comment, a like, sub, whatever you guys want to do. I'd appreciate it anyways. See you guys later.